All right, man, we got camera two going, camera one going. Try to talk to this primarily today. Let's intro this thing, man. You already know what it is, man. It's the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. Man, I should have let that one ride with the buttons. Still working on the buttons. Just wanted to come back and record, give you a little something today. In terms of what inspired me, man, it was honestly, the social medias. It got to me. I'm not going to say it got to me, but I found myself intrigued by the results that I saw. There's a situation with the Boston Celtics right now, and the head coach got suspended for a whole season due to what may have been consensual or non-consensual. I think there's a lot of stuff still up in the air at the time this is recorded, but it was definitely an inappropriate relationship in the workplace. And this gentleman is married to one of the queen of queens, right? I mean, Nia Long, one of the more or most desirable women out there for a straight black man to think of. I mean, if we're going to be honest, this is Nia Long of all people, right? And so I tend to say things and I say them how I say them. And when you're on a platform where you don't have much context other than just the words, it's very interesting to see how people will take words and then interpret it through their lens and then give it a translation and then give it their own backstory, and all you did was say was a set of words. In this case, to be more specific, I know what I said. And so what I said was, if Beyonce and Nia Long getting cheated on, why you expecting better treatment? Now, I want to pause there for a moment because I want to repeat that again so you hear it clearly. If Beyonce and Nia Long getting cheated on, why are you, excuse me, let me step that back because I didn't even put the R in there when I typed it. I just let this go without even giving it much thought. If Beyonce and Nia Long getting cheated on, why you expecting better treatment? And I follow that up with the smack in the face emoji and a shrug to clearly indicate that I'm a grown man and don't talk seriously with emojis, but I guess some people don't get that nuance. I don't know. I don't really talk seriously with emojis. It's just not something I do. Pardon me while I take a sip of this old Hillside straight rye whiskey, straight cash. That's what I posted. And I'll say it one more time because I really don't have any issue with what I said because it's based off what, we have seen here in reality. And it said again, if Beyonce and Nia Long getting cheated on, why you expecting better treatment? I definitely worded it rather, I would say rather carefully, but it's truthfully rather cleverly, if I must say. I did it intentionally because I think it's something to consider. I saw quite a few opinions on here when the news was breaking out, and a lot of individuals were of the mind that this was just like something they would never stand for. And why is this always this and happening? And it was just like, man, I would just leave. Like I would never stand for that. And I just have higher standards. And what I found more interesting was that even though all I said was, if Beyonce and Nia Long getting cheated on, why you expecting better treatment? People took that to, let's see, what were some of the tones here? And the overall sort of sentiment, some of the feedback was like, why would someone not expect better treatment? I also, heard people or saw people on here who said that women shouldn't lower their standards. Sounds like Beyonce and Nia Long should raise their standards. And I just found some of that feedback, interesting, that those women should raise their standards and that you would never have yours so low. When I think about those two women, which I named intentionally because, queens, you can't take nothing away from what they've accomplished, their place in the culture. And again, I don't know what millennial man doesn't want or have thought about the idea of like, oh man, Nia Long or Beyonce. Like, that's just the reality. And so I use them specifically because they are fixtures in the culture and they are widely admired for their beauty and their desirability. That's just the reality. I didn't put them there. They've been there for decades. Like a lot of black women, just fine wine. That's just proven with time over and over and over again. So no disrespect, but everybody, there's levels. And the idea that you would expect to say have any better than, anyone else because you're just so mightier than thou that your standards are so high you wouldn't accept certain things is interesting to me, as if to suggest these ladies don't have standards either. Like, my whole point in saying what I said wasn't to suggest that anyone's standards were high or low. There's a difference. There's a difference between having standards. There's a difference between having expectations. There's a difference between not having expectations. Hold on, let me step back. Let me step back. To be succinct here. There's a difference between expecting. There's a difference between expecting things to happen. And there's a difference between expecting things not to happen. I want to stop there because I got to get this together to be clear. There is a difference between expecting things to happen versus expecting things not to happen. And then there's something else. It's just not having those expectations. There's a difference. And I'm going to pause and let that settle in. You can expect something to go a certain way. You can expect that something will never happen. But it's one thing to just not have expectations that it will be one way or the other. If you look at what happens around you, why would you ever expect one thing or the other when life has shown that so many things are possible? And if you in my opinion, are with a partner and all you do is expect them to meet your standards, regardless of those standards, high or low or whatever the case, to uniquely put a value on certain things that you're going to find more important that your partner might not find as important as you. And to expect that, I think, is unreasonable. To expect your partner to always do as you want them to do, think as you want them to think, live up to your expectations, it's just not realistic. And so when I look at that in a what I feel is a very fair way, if that's the reality, then why is it that when they make that mistake, it's so much worse than when someone makes other mistakes? Like, that's up to you. That's your standards, but maybe your expectations need an adjustment. Not that they're high or low. They just might not be realistic. Maybe if you viewed your partner a different way versus viewing partners as people who are there to live as you think they should and fit in a box that fits whatever, how it is that you feel, that they have to fit up to your standards at all times. I don't think that's what a partner is for. And your partner will have flaws. I think what's most important is to not have expectations, but to know what you're going to expect of yourself. You shouldn't expect so much more of your partners than you need to expect what you're going to do with yourself. And so you need to ask yourself, because people are human. We're bound to disappoint our closest relatives. Like, it's just going to happen. So when these disappointments take place, you really see who loves you unconditionally. You really do. Because, like, that's how I know the two women in my life are the ones for me, because it's unconditional. Each of them have seen me at very low points, and all they've done was wrap their arms around me. I know what it's like to have a mindset that, like, I'm so forgiving, but if you do this, I won't forgive it. That's not that, like, it just doesn't balance. So you got to ask yourself, in my opinion, why is that thing so triggering to the point where it causes you to feel how you feel? It clearly causes something. It sparks something when we talk about this idea about someone being flawed, but we accept that our partners will be flawed and not perfect and all these other things. But then we put high value on certain imperfections to say that these imperfections are just completely unacceptable, even though I completely accept that you're going to be imperfect. We need to open up and, I think, really challenge that thought and ask ourselves, why is that? And most times it has nothing to do with that person. It's really all about you. Okay. Again, let's take one more 15-second break to celebrate Old Hillside. Also, make sure you hit like and subscribe. This is the G Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, at G_THA King. G Podcast. All right. Back to regular programming. So I just found it very interesting that that one sentence had such like strong opinions, and I guess people felt like I was talking to them. And so then I started thinking about the fact that, I post a lot of random one sentences on social media, one particular platform. I just post random stuff. And the day before I posted this post about, expecting better treatment, which I will get back to and put a cherry on the top of that. No pause. So the post just before that, it's like 1 or 2 days prior, I said, "Why do you defend things you don't believe in?" It got no interaction, no like, no comment. It's literally just a blank post, no interaction whatsoever. But then I posted just something silly off the rip, and people are so offended. It's crazy. It's nuts. And so then I started thinking about, like, man, I know that these tech companies and these big data companies get a lot of bad raps because of the algorithms and how the algorithms are influencing our culture, and the data that it suggests that it's impacting the livelihood of kids is alarming. There's clearly, a lot of vitriol toward these tech companies, especially social media companies, because of their influence on the culture and particularly the younger folks. And so one thing I started to think about as I looked at how people even engage just with me, it's like people went out of their way to comment on something that they just could have ignored, but they volunteered and dove right in. So, I mean, that's self-sabotage. Like, why would you dive right in to stir up a certain type of energy versus diving in to understand, to not cause more whatever it is inside you that's boiling, to not turn that temperature up? Why would you feed fuel to that fire voluntarily? Like, why do people just jump into stuff that's just going to further make them more miserable? Like, it's not my issue that you're triggered about that statement. I didn't mean anything harsh or malicious by it. Like, I don't mean any ill nothing by it. It's a clever way of just saying, like, what makes you think that you're so much better than, say, a Beyonce or Nia Long, that you would never, like, your expectations are just, you just expect way better than that from your man. I'm just simply saying that if these highly desired women who have been, like, I mean, legends, they're legends. They are legends. And the fact that I'm only talking about this because they have talked about it, or excuse me, it's been talked about in public spaces. Some people have made content around the discrepancies, the entanglements, whatever they call it these days. But this is not something that's, breaking news. It's definitely a topic of conversation in the public, and it's a well-known headline here that this coach has been suspended because of a relationship, and we all know that he is married to who he's married to. So that's why I use those two specifically, because it just baffles me that people really think that they deserve more than what these women have, and it's just like, I'm not saying nobody deserves more or better than the other. It's just what makes you reasonably expect that you would be getting much better than what they have, and to judge that situation or any situation because that imperfection specifically was the imperfection, I think that's worth just thinking about. Is it for better or for worse or not? We all have different tolerances, if you will. And so what's for you may not be for the next person, but your expectations often are the thing that guide how you feel in the end. When you are in a place of clarity and peace, where you're not emotionally rattled, and you understand that you don't get to control people, and when you are signing up to be with somebody, you're signing up not to have them live up to your standards. You're signing up to embrace that person and their flaws and not let imperfections, who we each have, not let those things be the reason why we point fingers at each other, why we don't support one another. It has to be unconditional. So if the love is unconditional, why these conditions? Why these conditions? Is it unconditional love, or is it based on your conditions, your standards? That is something to think about. Unconditional love versus I love you if you do this, and I will not continue to support you if you do this. That's not unconditional love. And that, in my opinion, is not what partnerships are about. So I challenge everyone to reevaluate how you, or what you might expect out of your partner, because they're not there just to make you happy and do as you say. That's just not what they're there for. They are their own entity. They are not responsible for your happiness. They have to be who they are. They are going to make mistakes, and you don't get to control the types of mistakes they'll make. Period. So if you aren't prepared to deal with that sort of reality, maybe you shouldn't be getting married to your partner. Maybe. Also, if you're not ready to deal with these sort of realities, you're going to probably end up having a lot of different partners because you keep looking for the one to meet your standards. Wow. Hey, man, it's been a blast. I'm still just getting started, and I'm pretty happy with what we just did there. Let's go ahead and write out the intro or the outro. Pause. And again, manage your expectations. This is the G podcast, where we focus on family, friendship, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. This is the G podcast. Final system check re-entry. Oh, ha. Leaving the audio going. Yo, I think I did all right there. Almost a 30-second joint. All right. See how that sound. All right. Hmm. All right, let me see. All right, perfect. 30 minutes. So this. All right. Camera 1 going off. Camera 2 going off. You already know what it is, man. We just getting started. We just getting started, man. We just getting started. I just want to appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. The whole goal of this podcast is to make sure that you have something that you can use to either apply to help your families, to help improve your friendships, to put you in a position to better your finances, to exercise your freedom, or ultimately put us all in a position to have better futures. So that's what the goal is of these conversations. Not trying to offend anybody, but I am trying to make you a little uncomfortable. We too busy being comfortable in our own bubbles, and I'm here to really just make sure that we have room for difference of opinion, and we are able to share that in respectful ways while having that dialogue. So I really appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Let me take that back. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Wow. You already know what it is. This is the G Podcast.